What's going on, everyone? GoodMicWork Commentary's back at you with a short impromptu commentary, kind of a mini podcast, if you will. I thought it would be nice to come up and give a quick rundown of All Elite Wrestling's big all-out pay-per-view that took place Saturday night in Chicago from the Sears Center. It is now early Sunday morning. I thought I would record a short review of this and stick it up on YouTube for you guys. I was up here on Saturday night reacting to the show, but because of my new equipment and stuff, I had some lighting issues and some audio issues and all sorts of stuff, so I figured I'd come up and just give you guys a brief rundown of what I thought of the show and the results and all of that. If you did not see the show, it was a great one. Very good show, very entertaining show, and well worth my $50. Saturday was an amazing day of wrestling. We had 3, count 'em, wrestling shows. You had New Japan holding a big show in London, Royal Quest. Right after that, we had NXT TakeOver Cardiff. And the main event of the evening was All Out here in the States in Chicago. And this pay-per-view did not disappoint. And it was up against a lot of competition because I unfortunately have not seen any of the New Japan show or much of TakeOver yet because I had to work all day in order to allow myself to be off, to be home, to watch All Out live. I needed to work all day long, so I missed all of the previous wrestling from the day. So I still have yet to take a look at that, and I will probably on Sunday, but based on the reactions from all of you and the results that I read and the overall feedback from the audience, both of those shows were pretty damn good. We saw a couple of title changes on the New Japan show as well, with Tanahashi and Kenta walking out with belts. And then on the TakeOver Cardiff show was off the hook. A lot of people had great things to say about Walter and Tyler Bate. Cesaro nearly stole the show with Dragunov. And we had a new women's champion and NXT Tag Team Champions crowned, so that show was great. And you even had Triple H after the show saying, follow that. So yeah, these companies are aware of each other, and they are competing, and it is glorious. Absolutely glorious. But let's get into what I want to talk about here, and that is the All Out pay-per-view. I was home to watch this. I did not catch the buy-in pre-show because, like I said, I was working. I actually did not walk in the door of my house until 15 minutes before the show. I literally walked right in the door, threw a different t-shirt on, and I was live streaming. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to watch a lot of the pre-pay-per-view festivities that were likely going on all day. I missed a lot of that stuff and missed some of the StarCast stuff as well. I have not listened to CM Punk's full interview or his panel or anything like that. I've heard a ton of opinions on it, but haven't myself heard it. So I'm going to try to check out all of that stuff throughout the day here on Sunday, September 1st. But let's talk about the pay-per-view. We will start with the pre-show, even though I didn't see it because it did have some notable things come out of that, one of which was the Casino Battle Royale. Now, this was involving the women, and this was going to determine one of the challengers for the Women's Championship, and the winner of this would take on the winner of Riho and Hikaru Shida later on in the night. And Nyla Rose came out victorious in this. I predicted this wrong. I had Britt Baker as the winner here. Nyla Rose won. That's pretty awesome. Some of the notables in this match, we had Brandy Rhodes, Awesome Kong, Tennille Dashwood, who I did mention on the podcast a couple of days ago. She did appear as well. You had Jazz in there. You had ODB, I believe, and Roddy Piper's daughter, Teal, was also a participant in this thing. So congrats to Nyla Rose. And also in the other buy-in match, we had the tag team match between the Private Party. They did defeat Angelico and Jack Evans. I predicted that match correctly, so I got 1 or 2 right on the buy-in. Main card now, the show opened up with a match that I was expecting. I thought that there was a really good chance that SCU would take on Luchasaurus, Marco Stunt, and Jungle Boy in the opener, but I predicted this extremely wrong. I thought if they were going to open with this match, the Jurassic Express would win for sure, but they went in the other direction. SCU picked up the victory. Marco Stunt took the pin. I guess I did not realize how absolutely tiny that guy is. He looks like my sister when she was 8. And I think former WWE Tag Team Champion Nicholas outweighs this guy by about 50 pounds. That's how little he is. He ate the pin here, and it was kind of cool. SCU kind of helped him up and gave him a little show of respect, and there was a nice, babyface moment there with all of the participants, which was kind of cool to see from time to time. Incidentally, Jim Ross did a fantastic job on commentary for this. He was on commentary with Excalibur and Golden Boy, who was a big step up. I thought all 3 guys did a really good job. I thought the commentary was on point tonight. It seemed like JR, prepared maybe a little bit more. He did not seem to be lost or confused or a little out of it like he has seemed like at times when he's done work for All Elite Wrestling or Japan or something like that. So props to the commentary team. I thought they did fabulous. The second match on the card was kind of a surprise. We went with Pac against Omega as match number 2. That surprised the shit out of me. Had this match stayed intact and remained as originally advertised with Omega and Moxley, I thought this would have been semi-main event or very near the end of the show. But now with Pac taking Moxley's place, this match was number 2, and it was great. I said in the podcast a couple of days ago that given the right stage in the moment, these two guys could easily, main event a Tokyo Dome show. And I knew they were going to be taking it to the absolute limit in this match and trying to give the fans something suitable as a replacement for Moxley not being there, and this was a big test for All Elite Wrestling to see how they were going to, respond to a major part of the show. I mean, this show was mostly built around Moxley and Omega, and of course Jericho and Page in the title match. But those were the two big matches, and for one of your two big matches on the show to have to be changed 10 days out, you knew Omega and Pac were going to have to go out there and work their asses off. They did. The match was crazy. The spots were crazy. One thing I noticed is that the guardrail seemed incredibly close to the ring because everybody was landing on that thing. At one point, Pac did a backflip or somersault or something like that from the top rope onto the floor, and his shins just smacked right on top of that guardrail. And Page's legs had hit him as well, and it was some really crazy spots. Glad nobody broke a leg in that. But just amazing stuff, and in a really surprising finish, you had Pac hooking Omega in, what's it called, the brutalizer submission or whatever it is, and actually put him to sleep straight down, beating Kenny Omega completely clean. Referee calls for the bell, and that's it. That was a shocker. I picked Kenny Omega to win this match. If he was in there against Moxley, maybe he would have lost anyway. But I thought Omega, considering that he'd already lost to Jericho, I think a double or nothing, and he doesn't have that great of a record in All Elite Wrestling. He's kind of off to a bad start, and he definitely looked dejected and broken after the match. Maybe that leads to a storyline with him saying, I need to get back to being the Kenny Omega that I know I can be. Maybe even, some sort of a crazy heel turn or something in the future. Who knows? But he's not off to a great start, but the match was fantastic. And another thing that I really enjoyed about the show tonight is the production of All Out. All Elite Wrestling has got some world-class production, but they don't overdo it. They don't overproduce everything like vomit like the WWE does, and I really enjoyed their post-match highlight packages. They were very quick, very streamlined. They were showing you one awesome move after another. Boom, 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 right in order. No crazy cross dissolves or transitions or split screens or any of that dumb shit that's so overdone. They just showed the best parts of the match real quick and then moved on to the next match. No 9-minute long video package between every match. They had a couple of, in-between stuff going on, but not every match followed the same formulaic crap that you see in WWE, and it was a really nice breath of fresh air, and that's the main thing I wanted out of All Elite Wrestling. I wanted them to present themselves as something different and a true alternative to what we're used to seeing. Another thing that they're doing that I think is cool, putting the wrestlers' win-loss records next to their name on the graphic, because they have come out and said that they want wins and losses to matter. And I think that's great because we've seen clearly in WWE they do not matter. And fans think that wins and losses not mattering is fucking stupid, and they're right. But in WWE it does kind of make sense because every single week on Raw and SmackDown they shit shuffle this stuff around and we get so many repeated matches and pointless matches that we do not give two shits about. The same match 2, 3, 4 sometimes weeks in a row on Raw. Sometimes they do it on SmackDown as well. In the WWE's universe, wins and losses actually really don't matter because those matches are so fucking meaningless. So the fact that you have All Elite Wrestling coming out and saying, we want our wins and losses. We don't care what WWE does. If they don't want to make them matter, that's their business. But we want our wins and losses to matter. And I think that can be fun. That can be fun for the audience because now if wins and losses matter and you have a win-loss record to worry about, every match is important. Every match does mean something because it goes against your win and loss record, which is going to determine contenders for championships in the future. So I'm for this idea. I'm interested to see how it goes, and I'm interested to see how it progresses and how seriously they really take it, if they stick with it, if they drop it, whatever. But I'm liking that, and I think it's a cool aspect of All Elite Wrestling. The next matchup was insane. My God, this was so entertaining. It was the Cracker Barrel Clash between Jimmy Havoc, Darby Allin, and Joey Janela. I predicted this one right. I predicted Jimmy Havoc to win. He did. I was kind of leaning towards Darby Allin because he took Cody to the limit at Fyter Fest with that draw. Thought that was a nice moment for him. Maybe this could be a big win for him. But then when I rethought that, I was like, well, of the 3 people in this match, 2 of them have been given some pretty cool moments at AEW shows. You know, with Joey Janela having that great match with Moxley and Darby Allin, like I said, taking Cody to the limit, I felt that maybe it was Jimmy Havoc's turn. And this was a very Jimmy Havoc match. The staple guns were out. The thumbtacks were out. Mouthfuls of thumbtacks with duct tape and all sorts of crazy, insane stuff. We had a skateboard at one point that Darby Allin brought out that the bottom of it was just covered in thumbtacks and he's whacking guys with it. We had a lot of sick, sadistic stuff. We had some wrestling. We had some hardcore wrestling and we had some comedy. The one word I would use to describe this match more than anything is entertaining. It was entertaining. And that's all I want. I didn't think it was too over the top. I'm sure Jim Cornette didn't like it, but it had something for everyone. And not every wrestling match needs to be Harley Race versus Dusty Rhodes. You can have a lot of crazy stuff in wrestling. That's what wrestling is all about, and I thoroughly enjoyed this match. We had, I believe, the tag team match up next. Now, this one was kind of weird because it had a really weird stipulation that I really don't understand. So it was the tag team match between the Dark Order and the Best Friends. Now, the winner would receive a first-round bye in the tag team title tournament that's going to be taking place. But shouldn't they have just kicked off the tag team title tournament and made this match a first-round match? Doesn't that produce the same result? The winner of this match moves on to the second round. So why they decided to word it as the winner gets a first-round bye, I have no idea. But I predicted this match right as well. The Dark Order did pick up the win here. They are a weird team. I'm not sure if the audience is really into them as heels, and I'm not sure how I feel about the perverted shirtless druids, but I just had this feeling that they would win. They did. They will now move on to the second round. And after the match, we had probably the pop of the night and one of the most fun moments on the entire pay-per-view. The Dark Order continued to attack the Best Friends until the lights go out and they come back on, and Orange Cassidy, decked out in denim, standing right there in the middle of the ring with his hands in his pockets. Crowd goes nuts, and he makes the save. He dives over the top rope with his hands in his pockets, dives through and lands on everybody, and he got an enormous ovation from the crowd. And another moment that Jim Cornette, I'm sure, just loved to death. And I thought it was great. So congratulations to the Salamonster on your AEW debut. Next up is the women's match that I mentioned earlier on. The winner of this will face Nyla Rose for the AEW Women's Championship. Riho taking on Hikaru Shida, and I predicted this match right as well. Riho did pick up the win, so all 65 pounds of Riho is now going to have to get in the ring with Nyla fucking Rose. That should be interesting, but I thought the match was really good. I think the women's division should be pretty fun, and so far, it doesn't look horrible. And the title match ought to be interesting, to say the least. Next up, we had Cody versus Shawn Spears. Shawn has recently aligned himself with Tully Blanchard, kind of changed his ways, and Tully is teaching Shawn his cagey ways, because Tully was a very sneaky and dirty heel. And I like the pairing between the two. Cody has been teasing that he's going to have someone in his corner as well. Many of us automatically thought of Arn Anderson because he was recently let go from WWE. We know he can come into All Elite Wrestling anytime he wants, and he would be a perfect guy for Cody to bring with him to opposite Tully Blanchard, because the two of them have a ton of history in the Horsemen as a tag team together. The only problem with that is, does it make a whole lot of sense for a Rhodes to put a Horseman in his corner when there's a Horseman on the other side? So I pitched the idea of Arn Anderson maybe turning on Cody. But Cody didn't choose Arn Anderson. He chose MJF, who did accompany him to the ring along with Brandy, along with DDP, and along with Pharaoh the dog. And did you notice when they had that poor dog up on the stage, it wanted nothing to do with it. Finally, when he recognized Cody, he kind of went up to him, but he wanted to get the fuck out of there as soon as he could. So they take that dog everywhere, but he looked a little bit stressed out to me. So I hope they gave Pharaoh some nice rubs on his belly and some nice treats in the locker room, because he looked scared shitless. But when they came down to the ring, it was almost like Cody just chose, like decided right there, okay, it's going to be MJF. And then there was the talk of maybe MJF turning on Cody, because even the announcers were alluding to the fact that maybe he's a little bit disingenuous with his feelings and his relationship towards Cody. You know, even at the end of the match, MJF kind of picked up the chair and thought about cracking Cody with it. So they teased it. They did tease that MJF could turn, but he did not. He didn't do a very good job of fending off Tully Blanchard. Tully was putting the boots to Cody at one point during the match that did prompt Arn Anderson to come out and make the save, and he got in the ring and delivered a beautiful spine buster to Shawn Spears. Absolutely marked out for that moment. So did the audience. That was very cool. They even did the spot in the match where Cody is about to give Shawn a receipt for that chair shot and elects not to, tosses the chair out of the ring, and winds up hitting him with the crossroads for the 3 count instead. So that was a pretty good match. Maybe not as crazy as some of the other ones we would see, like Pac and Omega, but definitely good, and I was entertained by that. And I kind of had the Elite guys mixed up. I had Omega winning and Cody losing, and I had it reversed. And I think one day, Cody will be wearing that AEW World Heavyweight title. Next up was the ladder match. Oh my God, between the Lucha Bros and the Young Bucks for the AAA Tag Team titles. I predicted this one correctly as well. I thought maybe Lucha Brothers should win while the Young Bucks go on and win the Tag Team tournament, and then you can do a champion versus champion match down the line. I know these teams have already wrestled like a half a dozen times this year already, but maybe you could set up for one more. My only concern with this match, and I was saying it in the stream, I just didn't want anybody to die. I knew it was going to get crazy, and it was, and there's one specific bump that sticks out that Nick Jackson took when he's on the ladder. We see it in ladder matches all the time. Somebody's up on the big, tall ladder in the middle of the ring, and it gets tipped over, and they fall on the outside of the ring through a table. Well, that happened to Nick. The only problem is his feet caught the top rope as he was falling down, and it caused his face just to go straight down and eat that table. That was gnarly. I hope he's okay. I saw his post-match interview. He appears to be fine, but that was a nasty bump. And there was a ton of nasty bumps in that. At one point, Matt Jackson, took off the mask of Pentagon Jr., completely took it off. And he covered his face, scurried to the outside of the ring. They retrieved the mask, put it back on him. And after Nick took that nasty fall on the outside, Matt took a fall through a table as well, leaving both Bucks laid out. And Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix were able to climb the ladder and grab the belts. And they retained the AAA tags, and that match was bonkers. Absolutely bonkers, and I'm glad everybody survived. These guys just keep raising the bar every time with each passing year, and these ladder matches are extremely entertaining and scary at the same time to watch. And this one was no different. Holy shit, I almost forgot to mention this too. After the match, you had a couple of guys in masks and hoods hit the ring and attack the Lucha Brothers. They kind of had like ex-presidents' masks on or something like that. And they take off the masks to reveal Santana and Ortiz of LAX. We heard that there was a possibility of them showing up at All Out. We knew there was a possibility of them, number one, coming into All Elite Wrestling, and number two, showing up at All Out. And they did hit the ring, attack the Lucha Brothers after the match. That was a pretty cool moment. So with Orange Cassidy and LAX making appearances, that was enough, I think, to satisfy me. And that brings us to the main event. Hangman Page versus Chris Jericho to crown the first ever All Elite Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion. I predicted this one right, too. I thought about it. I struggled with it. I was looking at two sides here. I'm like, on one hand, you would think that All Elite Wrestling would want some, I don't want to say homegrown guy, but one of their guys that doesn't have a WWE history, that's probably going to be with the company and associated with guys like the Bucks and Cody and Omega for years to come. He might be a good guy to have as your first champion going in your record books as one of your own, instead of having a WWE megastar have to come in and be that guy. But on the other side of that coin, Jericho is a big personality. He is a megastar, and he would be a good guy to have as champion going into their TNT show. I think he could get a lot of people to tune in more than someone like Adam Page. Come check me out on TNT. If you have Jericho cutting a shit-talking heel promo, dangling the title in the fans' faces and bragging and being that asshole, the money is in the chase. And you put him on TV, you put him on TNT. I don't know if you necessarily want to do a title change right up front. I don't think Jericho's going to hold the belt long, but I think you have to have him as champion on TNT, at least initially, so he can go out there and help get viewers. And then you build maybe 4 to 6 weeks later for a TNT show to pop a big rating. After they've been rolling for a few weeks, you put Jericho in the main event on the show with the title on the line, and he drops the belt to a babyface, whether that's to Adam Page in a rematch, or maybe a Kenny Omega, maybe a Moxley, I don't know. That can be something that's really fun. So for those people that might be upset that Jericho won, maybe they think it's the wrong decision. I personally don't. I really don't. I think it's probably the best thing for them to do, for them to get noticed and to get as much publicity as possible. Jericho's a megastar. Page is not. And, Page will have his day in the sun in the future. We know that. Paige had quite the entrance, came in on a fucking horse and had his family at ringside. So the signs were there that they might be crowning Paige, but in the end, Jericho won with that back elbow move of his, which I know a lot of people are not a fan of, and sometimes it looks like shit, sometimes it looks good. This one I thought looked pretty good. Jericho was also busted open, a lot of blood on his face. I thought the match was pretty decent for what it was. You got to remember, Jericho's 50. He's in there with a granddad bod. And he's winning world championships. So I'm actually okay with the decision. Overall, I thought the show was great. Most of you all gave it a good grade. I'd put it somewhere between a 7.5 and an 8.5 out of 10. And that's coming from an unbiased opinion. I'm not one of these, I'm not a part of this, what I call a stupid war in wrestling, especially on social media. I find it incredibly counterproductive to be arguing with fans and to be such a damn fangirl of one promotion or the other that you're delusional as to what the other one is doing. On the All Elite Wrestling side, you hear things like Vince McMahon is desperate. The only reason he moved NXT to Wednesday nights is because he's desperate, and All Elite Wrestling's going to put him out of business, and he needs to do that to save the company. My God, the WWE has so much talent there. They can literally crap out cards that are better than All Out. And All Out was a damn good card. And, when you compare All Out to some of the better takeovers, just pick out the 10 or 15 best takeovers in your head. Was All Out better than any of those? I would probably say no. It was better than some of them, but not better than all of them. And just about every single takeover is completely off the hook. And those are 5-match cards, a lot shorter than All Out, and All Out was a much longer show, and overall, from top to bottom, I was entertained. And there were some quieter and colder moments in the show, but you can find that on every wrestling show, and overall, like I said, it was $50 well spent for me, and I'm more than happy to give this company, money every couple of months for pay-per-views if they keep delivering shows like this, and I think the next one is set for the anniversary of the Screwjob on November 9th, so that's coming up in the future, and I'll definitely be watching that too, and it should be fun. So props to everybody involved in All Elite Wrestling. I think the show went off without a hitch. Pay-per-view ran smooth. I had no issues with my stream. Production was good. Matches were good. Everybody performed. All Elite Wrestling looks like a company that has their shit together. And I think that's fantastic. But with that being said, I don't think the fans need to be so crazy to think that WWE is going to go out of business now. I mentioned on the stream on Saturday night that Coca-Cola is not afraid of RC Cola. It's just not the way business works. It's just competition. WWE's competing. All Elite Wrestling's competing. They're competing back with each other. That's what we want. Nobody's doing anything out of fear. Nobody's doing anything out of desperation. To continue to repeat that ridiculous narrative just makes the fans look dumber and dumber. And on the WWE side, don't get too ahead of yourselves either. Don't think that AEW has no chance at all. They're proving they got a hell of a chance. They have a cable TV deal. They're pulling out big numbers, sellouts. Fans are interested. Fans want them to succeed. Fans are desperate for an alternative here in the States. Something other than Impact that has failed miserably at everything that they've ever tried. You don't get that vibe from these guys. All Elite Wrestling has money behind them. They have, people behind them. They have a TV network actually behind them that's going to promote them. So I think they have a chance here. But the shit's not going to happen overnight. 30 years from now, I hope AEW is neck and neck with WWE. But it's going to take a long time for them to get to that point, and I think as fans, we all should root for that. How stupid does it sound in your head when you think of that there are fans? There are plenty of fans. You guys know some of you probably are some that are listening to this right now, that actually root for another company to have a bad show, just so you can stick it to the fans that annoy you. And that's what I don't want to see. I don't want these All Elite Wrestling crazy fanboys to go so nuts that you have WWE fans wishing that All Elite Wrestling has a bad show. I'm already seeing that. I'm seeing that from podcasters. I'm seeing that from some of them that I can tell are resentful towards All Elite Wrestling. And they might not say it, but deep down they want them to fail. And I think the reason for that is not because they have anything against All Elite Wrestling, is because the fans are driving them nuts. And then on the All Elite Wrestling side, it's the same thing. They come up with all these crazy ideas in their head about Vince McMahon and blah, 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 and all the stupid shit that they just repeat. A lot of it makes no sense. They're just saying that because they're so anti-WWE, and they're letting their emotions overtake critical thinking, and they just spew out dumb, untrue shit. I'm no fan of Vince McMahon or WWE in 2019, no more than the next guy, but let's not pretend that AEW is going to have this company out of business in 6 months. Let's use our fucking heads here. So I think both sides need to shut the fuck up and just let the companies do the battling. Let the companies have the war. The fans shouldn't be having the war. Let WWE and All Elite Wrestling punch each other in the face. We need to shut our mouths and enjoy what great wrestling lie ahead of us. That's my advice to all of you. Thank you very much for listening. I will catch you guys tomorrow night. Come join me live for my Monday Night Raw watch along and let me know what you think of All Out in the comments below. Y'all be good. Peace.